Problem number 42 says, find two consecutive odd whole numbers such that the sum of their squares is 74. So what are consecutive odd numbers?
It'd be like 3, 5, 7.
Good. So the odd numbers right after each other. It's number 42. Find two consecutive odd whole numbers such that the sum of their squares is 74. So how would I write if I have consecutive odd numbers? If n is my first number, what is my next odd number? N plus 2. Such that the sum means add, such that the sum of their squares, how do I show their squares? Yeah, square it. Quantity squared is means equals 74. Okay, so there's my equation. How do I square n plus 2? You have to write it out twice. And some people call it foiling. Some people call it double distributive. N times n is n squared. N times 2 is 2n. 2 times n is 2n. 2 times 2 is 4. Combine like terms. 2n squared plus 4n plus 4 equals 74. Where do I go from here? Subtract 74. Set it equal to 0. You should notice that you have a greatest common factor. What's in common with all of those? 2. If I divide everything by 2, I get an n squared, a 2n, a negative 35. So what are my two consecutive numbers? What's the best method in solving this? Factors of 35 that subtract to give you 2.
7 and 5.
Yeah, 7 and 5. Because I am subtracting, I have two different signs. 7 is the bigger factor. It's going to take the middle sign. When I solve, n is a negative 7, n is 5. So how do I answer the question, two consecutive whole odd numbers?
7, negative 7.
You would add, you would multiply
By definition, whole numbers are not negative.
Okay, so that one doesn't get. So
5 and
5
7.
Yes. 5 and 7. So all of those little things you've got to remember.
Wait, Miss Philpott,
Yes.
in the beginning, could you not just square root everything?
Yeah.
No, you cannot,
Why?
because you cannot square root everything because this is a sum. You have to combine like terms. If you would have just had one that was a square, like quantity squared, then you could have square rooted it. But because of that plus, you've got to do the orders of operation. Let's see. How about 50? The length of a rectangular floor is 1 meter less than twice its width. If the diagonal of the rectangle is 17 meters, find the length of the width of the floor. I have to draw pictures. I have a rectangle. So I'm going to draw me a rectangle. 1 meter less than twice the width. How do I write 1 meter less than twice the width? 2W minus 1. My width is W. If the diagonal goes from corner to corner, is 17 meters. Find the length and the width of the floor. What do you know?
It's a right triangle.
Yes, it is a rectangle, so we have a right triangle. I have 3 legs of a right triangle. What do you know? Three legs to a right triangle. The Pythagorean theorem, if you have your legs, W squared plus 2W minus 1 quantity squared, it's going to equal the hypotenuse squared. Now, hopefully some of you are getting to the point where you can do this little trick. 2W squared is 4W squared. Multiply the 2W and the 1 together. That gives you a negative 2W, and double it. Square the last one. And that will save you from writing it out and having to FOIL it. 17 squared is 289. Have I lost anyone? Combine like terms. 5W squared minus the 4W plus 1, subtract the 289, equals 0. 5W squared minus 4W minus 288 equals 0. What is our best method for solving? Probably the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula. W equals the opposite of B plus or minus B squared minus 4 times A times C divided by 2 times A is 10. 4 plus or minus. A negative times a negative is a positive, so 5,776. Is that what you had? And then, what is that 5,776? The perfect square, 4 plus or minus 76 over 10. 76 plus 4 is 80 over 10 is 8. And 4 minus 76 is a negative 72 over 10, which is a negative 7.2. Which one of those answers would be best for a width of a rectangle? 8. You can't have a negative width. So if our instructions say find the length and the width is 8, how do I find the length? Length is 2 times the width minus 1. 16 minus 1 is 15, and we were talking our units is meters. So 8 meters and 15 meters.